Okay. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Andy, to give us the presentation. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you very much, Celia. Very happy to be here. Um, as we mentioned, my name is Andy Bosk, and I'm the Director of Career Connections in the School of Education. Hopefully we have a lot of great education students on the Zoom today. If you have a major in a different school, just know that each school has their own specialized career services office, and the resources that I can show you, I'm sure they have a bunch of great resources as well. So I wanted to start out by extrapolating on those resources a little bit more, and how we tend to help education students. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so Career Connections, these are some of the major services that we offer. We have a professional development workshop series where we're providing probably 3, I would say, workshops a month intended to help you supplement a lot of your classroom learning with other things that can help you feel more career ready. And again, because we're in education, we're going to tend to focus on things like curriculum, working with parents, working with students with gender identity concerns, and lots of different issues like that that are typically related to K through 12 teaching and some other areas as well. We also have suicide prevention courses that we host, CPR, things that are required for teacher licensure in Indiana. So we have a full calendar of events that we're hosting for students. We also do, as all other offices would do, career coaching appointments. So you can make an appointment with us to talk about resume stuff, cover letters, networking, interviewing, or if you just don't know where to start, you can make an appointment with us to talk about that stuff. If you're thinking about going on to grad school, we can handle those issues as well. If you're a grad student, you want us to take a look at your CV, we're happy to do that. So there's lots of good reasons to come and talk to one of our talented career coaches, the School of Education. I wanted to draw your attention to Handshake, which, if you're not already familiar with, you may have RSVP'd to events through Handshake, but it also offers a really robust job board that we share with all IU Bloomington schools. It's actually system-wide, so all IU schools, all IU students have access to Handshake, and lots of those employers posting jobs there they're coming to us directly and saying, we want to hire IU students. And another nice thing about that board is it's not only national, but it's international. So we have organizations from all over the world that are recruiting IU students. So if you see something you like, definitely go ahead and apply or reach out to one of those organizations if you have questions. And then we just do our post-grad surveys as well. You graduate, you get a job. We appreciate when you let us know that you have that, so I can stop sending you emails about schools who are looking for teachers. I get that a lot, unsurprisingly. So I wanted to just show you our website real quick so I can go into a little bit more detail. So Career Connections, again, housed in the School of Education. We've got a nice event feed right here with upcoming events, including the webinar today. And I wanted to specifically draw your attention to a couple of things. First, Handshake. If you don't know where to find it, you can just click on the button here, and I can actually show you what the job board looks like. You will log in with your IU username and passphrase. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the student side. So to get to that job board, you can just click on jobs up here. Side note, you can also create an appointment with us by clicking on appointments, or your specific school if you're not an education student. And then here's the job board. So 21,000 jobs in there right now. That is a lot. If I click on location, and I haven't done this yet, but I assume I can just type in London, come up with something. So yeah, we've got 16 jobs based out of London right now that you could go ahead and apply for. And then of course you can use more filters, particularly industry if you're looking for K-12 education. Should be. Oh, maybe there are no K-12 educations in London right now, but you can search for particular industries and search for different geographic areas and really come up with a good list of things you might be interested in. So that is the Handshake job board. See if I can go all the way back to our website. The second thing I wanted to call your attention to is the Find a Job page. And this is where the bulk of our resources are housed. And in particular, this Career Connections job search guide. This is brand new. We just revamped this page and put together, let's see, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I might have to share the PDF here. Yeah, so 36 page guide to finding a job. And if I go down here to job search resources, got some standard resources. We've got some good nationwide and international resources as well, such as idealist.org or GuideStar. And then job search resources for those seeking international employment in particular is what I wanted to highlight today. And the very first thing we say is be sure to check out the IU Office of Overseas Study. Now you might be saying, well, I don't want to study overseas, I want to work overseas. That's great. They have a lot of great organizations that they have already partnered with or they have already vetted. So that would be a great place to start. They can let you know, yes, this organization is legit. We've had students intern there before. So yeah, that could be a good place to find a potential job. And then we have a lot of other great resources that we draw from the American Association for Employment and Education, which we're a member of. They put out a great guide every year, and they have a big section on working abroad and lots of great resources they refer to here. You may be familiar with things like the Peace Corps or JET, Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, but some other ones as well that you may not be familiar with, such as Going Global, which is a pretty standard resource that people use for trying to find work opportunities abroad. So some of these are specifically teaching related, other ones are more education or even across wider industries. So definitely check out some of those resources. And so those are the main resources that we have for people who are looking for work opportunities abroad. I will say, I think this is a great time in your life to do something in another country. We have a lot of great education students that are seeking to teach abroad. We have a long history of helping them do that through the Global Gateways for Teachers program. run by Dr. Laura Stokowski. So if you're an education student and you've never heard of Global Gateways, you're definitely going to want to check that out. You would do your student teaching your senior year, first in Indiana and then abroad as well. And while we typically have our big interview day recruiting event, the spring semester of your senior year, we do a special thing to help those Global Gateway students participate. We have them submit a short 5 to 10 minute video of themselves answering some typical interview questions, and then we will share those videos with our participating employers. So never fear, if you are going abroad, you will be a hot commodity and very highly sought after. Even before you come back, I wouldn't be surprised if schools were reaching out to you while you were doing your student teaching abroad. So those are the main things that I wanted to say about Career Connections and how we can help students who are looking for job opportunities abroad.
Thank you very much, Andy. These are very useful and helpful information. I found the guidebook of Career Connection, and I shared the link in the chat box.
Oh, great.
That people don't need to search for themselves. It's already in the chat box, and I see Laura's here. She shared the contact information of Global Gateway. If you're interested, shoot her an email. Okay, great. Now let's move on to Randy's presentation. Randy will talk about on-campus resources for general international job search. So remember, you need to ask your question. Your question to the Q&A.
Well, thanks for having me today. I'm filling in for a colleague because we co-chair a group of the International Task Force for the Career Council for all of IU. I tend to focus more on incoming students and immigration regulations, so I'm on shaky ground here. So this may seem a little disjointed, but we'll get through it. I was asked to talk about the difference between working domestically or looking for a job domestically versus looking for a job overseas. And it's very different, but there's also a lot of the same elements, right? They still need to know your background and your skills, but they may collect it in a different way. Some countries may use simply a form that you have to fill out and not a resume. Cover letters may work in some countries and not in others. I used to run, this is in the days before we were as electronic as we are now. I ran a job service for a conference, and everybody had to send me like 30 copies of their resume that employers could then come and pull out the resume. Andy's probably too young to remember those days. But at one point, I was dealing with a global membership, and I wrote out shortly before the conference, I can't wait to see, I'm looking forward to seeing your smiling faces. All of a sudden, I started getting these batches of resumes with people's pictures attached to the resume, which is not what I meant at all. But in some countries, you are expected to submit a picture as part of your application. I'm going to give you a resource in a minute for how do you figure out what the country you're interested in needs. And that's what I mean by being a little disjointed. I'm going to share my thoughts first, and then we're going to visit some websites. So just be prepared that when you're looking for a job in another country, you need to figure out what they need from you. They're not going to adapt to your style. So do your research in advance. And in terms of just sort of preparation for working abroad, think about language. I mean, in many jobs these days, they value your English skills, but you're going to have to live in the country that you're going to, right? Most of you probably studied at least one other language. I see some internationals in here, so you may speak multiple languages, but you studied another language in high school, I'm sure. Brush up on that. You don't have to be perfectly fluent in most cases, particularly if you're looking for like a teaching job in English, but you do need to be capable of some basic communication. And I always make it a point, every country I go to, learn thank you, please, excuse me, hello, and goodbye. That's I can say those in multiple languages. Um, but if you want to pick up more language skills while you're at IU, we teach more international languages at IU than any other institution in the country. We also have programs where you can practice your other language. So, and I'll give you a link in a moment, but through International Services, you can either be a language tutor for an international student, or you can be a conversation partner where you pick someone, let's say, the language that is French and you want to brush up on it. It will match you with a French speaker that wants to improve their English, and then you just help each other out. So also think about your cultural skills. If you're an international student here in the States, you've been experiencing a different culture and you've made several adaptations and learned a lot about American culture. If you're going overseas, you need to be aware of the cultural differences and changes there. And while we don't have the ability to teach you every different culture in the world, we do have a program that actually I run the program called the Cultural Certificate for Intercultural Competence, and it's a short program. You need to take 4 one-hour classes in different categories, just one time. It's not like an all semester thing. But throughout the semester, every Friday, there's a course that you can take, and it will give you some general intercultural skills. And you are all welcome to attend that. It's geared more for like staff, faculty, and grad students, but I would welcome any undergraduate that would like to attend as well. Then you need to be aware when you're working overseas that they're going to have different work permissions. If you work through an agency or with an established company, they will know and they will help you through that process. But you could do a little research in advance to find out what the work permission requirements are. I could go for days, as some of you know, about work permissions to work in the United States, and other countries have the same issues that we do, and some of them make it even tougher to get work permission. So, if you're picking a country that says, it takes 3 years to get approved to work, that may not be a country that you want to, you can cross that one off your list. You need lots of patience and persistence for any kind of international job search. So just be prepared. Your colleagues may be getting job placements in the US, and their seniors last semester of their senior year is a happy one because they have a job and you are still looking. But be prepared that that's what it takes. And also when you're thinking of working abroad, think about how long do you want to spend overseas? Do you want to just take work over a summer and get exposure? Do you want to work for a semester? Do you want to work for a year? Or do you think maybe this is a career option for you? Because those will change the parameters of the search as you're thinking about making that move. Okay, so now I'm going to try to share my screen and we'll go over some, if I can find my list, some of these websites, and Andy has saved me some time. I will send you, Sulia, I'll send you this list so you can share it out so people don't need to copy it down. The first list is just talking about IU's study abroad program and how fabulous it is. They may have some internships in that program as well. Then there's Laura Stokowski's Global Gateway program. My daughter actually worked for her for a little while, so I'm very fond of this program. And I think she has lots of options, and more than options, I mean, she also, and Laura's here, so we'll see if she's going to kill me for saying this. She knows things. She would be a great person to network with about who are her connections overseas and who are the alums that went on that program that might have some suggestions for you. So do not overlook the tremendous resources that you have in the School of Ed. Andy's pulled a lot together for the job search, but what would it be like to live in Indonesia? Well, you've got a staff member that worked, is from Indonesia. So learn who your faculty and staff are, and go and do information interviews with them, and find out what it's really like. This next link I'm not going to go to, but I'll just tell you that's where you can sign up to be a conversation partner. And we always need people that speak English to work in those programs. And Transitions Abroad is one of the resources that Andy has on his website. I was also going to mention JET, so we're all on the same page. I've used Transitions for a long time. They have everything from like a 3-week project setting up a bank in Botswana to a 6-year Peace Corps like project building a water system in I don't know, Sri Lanka or something. So that's a good source. I want to visit with you, if I can here, the Passport Career resource. I picked the one that's linked through the Kelley School of Business, but this is an amazing resource. It lists jobs overseas, but it also tells you how to prepare your resume for overseas, the culture issues, culture and business protocol, who the top employers are, all these sources on how to get ready. So, and this is a service that IU subscribes to. So it's always updated, always current, and I would strongly recommend taking a look at that when you're looking for overseas work. This next resource has a lot of the same things that Andy has on his website. So if you want to look cool before you go talk to Andy, you can check out this resource library at the Walter Career Center, because it's some very basic information about how to get yourself together for a job search. Don't overlook international alumni. Not only those that have participated in the Global Gateway program through the School of Ed, but just alumni that are now based overseas that would love to meet and talk and help an international or an IU student. It's their connection back to IU. So here's a link to get to them. Next link is just IU Global, and that link has, so the Global Gateway is a School of Education project, but we also have global gateways for Indiana University. So there's one for Europe, one for India, one for China, one for Thailand, one for Latin America. And those are staffed by IU staff members to help facilitate the exchange between their region and IU. And they will often have helpful tips for you. And then we mentioned JET, and then I'm going to click on this because this is my baby. This is the Intercultural Competence Certificate. And that's a nice thing to put on your resume. And we're actually, I think, very close to creating a digital badge for that will also, I think, look good on your application materials.
Randy, just to let you know, we won't be able to see it unless you share your
Oh, I did. Did I not share?
We're looking at your Word document.
Well,
Share
how do I?
Word document, not the website.
Okay. Well, I didn't claim to be technologically competent.
You can stop share.
Yeah. Does that work?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, cool. So we'll start this after the semester gets underway. So sometime in early October, it will run through December. If you don't finish 4 sessions before then, you can pull those through into the spring and finish it then. But these are the sessions that we work on. It's fun. And I really look forward to having as many people participate at IU as we can. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is look up international boarding schools. I imagine Andy might have that somewhere, but I think that's an excellent place for educators to look for an overseas experience. And generally, you can get away with more English and less international language in situations like that. So I think that's all I was able to pull together for you in a hurry. But I hope you get the idea that IU has tons of resources and tons of people to help you. I know that just sort of organizing yourself to conduct a search is going to be very important. Yeah, and Laura's saying, yes, she will love to talk to you. So anyway, that's all I have for you today, but I hope it helps.
Thank you so much, Randy. I really like your thoughts on preparing for a job search in the beginning. Yeah, I think many of us, we don't know where to start. And the few points that you mentioned about language and work permission are very helpful. We should think ahead and plan for the job search. Right. And yes, I will ask you for those links and share with our participants today. Thank you. And then let's welcome our friends from Leading Out, Stephen and Jen. They are experienced teachers. They teach overseas. They both teach in Australia, and now they came back from Australia, and they will share their stories and give you some ideas about how is it like working abroad.
Awesome. Thank you, Sulia. Andy and Randy, you had some really great stuff. I'm going to touch on some of the similar points as well. I've got my colleague Jen here as well.
Hi,
and, there's Jen. I'm Steve. So we'll be talking about Leading Out. Jen and I work for Leading Out. And we also went through Leading Out as teachers as well. So Jen, can you share our presentation, please?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I'll get started just while she's getting set up here. Leading Out is the name of our company that we work for. We essentially are a company that helps teachers to get teaching jobs abroad, and we kind of help with the whole process of getting there. Can you make it? There we go. Slideshow. Nice. Next slide, please. Okay, so we kind of specialize in international teacher recruitment, as well as just the entire process of, getting a visa in whatever country you're heading to, finding jobs there. We mainly focus on Australia right now. Ever since COVID hit 2 years ago, it really messed up things with the borders, the visas, the teacher licensing protocols. A lot of it got put on hold for many countries. A lot of them did start to open up in January this year. So business has been really crazy for us since January, December. That's when Australia's borders opened. We're still kind of putting the pause on everywhere else. We used to do a lot of work in the UK, a little bit in Southeast Asia, and a lot in New Zealand as well prior to COVID. But right now we are completely swamped with Australia work. So we're going to focus a bit more on Australia than our other areas that we've previously worked in. But that's because Australia is in a perfect situation to have teachers come down and work right now. Can you go to the next slide, please? So before I get into the reasoning for Australia's teacher demand at the moment, I'll just kind of tell you a bit more about Leading Out. So at Leading Out, we're a really small company. We're one of just a couple companies that the Australian government kind of uses as a third party to recruit for them. So everybody that works at Leading Out, it's only a handful of us. We have actually all gone through Leading Out at one point as teachers, and then eventually at some point in our career come back to work for Leading Out. And I think that speaks to how much we enjoyed the process. A little bit about me. I did my undergraduate teaching degrees at North Dakota State. And I knew I wanted to study abroad, but when I was talking to the Career Service Center and Study Abroad department, they essentially told me that if I want to study abroad, it'll put me back an extra semester. Just the way that the classes were structured. But then they were like, well, why don't you student teach abroad? And similar to IU, it's our final semester of your teaching program. You go and, do a semester of student teaching. I went through a different company, not Leading Out, a company that kind of specialized in practicums and unpaid jobs. It was a bit of a process. I kind of had to figure a lot of it out on my own. I wasn't super impressed with that company, but I knew that I really wanted to go abroad again after that experience. I went to New Zealand for that student teaching, and I just loved the school that I was at. Had a really great host family that took care of me. Got to do a lot of traveling, and I just really enjoyed the experience down there. So I knew that I wanted to go back, but I wanted to do a bit more research, and that's kind of how I found out about Leading Out. Leading Out mainly focuses on Canadian teachers in the past, but we've been really working to start helping Americans, and that's kind of why we're here today. We're here to help you understand that it's not that difficult to go abroad. Yes, it's a big step, and you need to prepare, like Randy said, and figure out what that country or area is looking for. But if you do a little bit of research, it can go a long ways. So Jen and I both found Leading Out. We weren't the norm. Like I said, it used to be almost 90% Canadians that they would send over. So we were some of the few Americans that kind of jump-started this about 4 or 5 years ago. And like I said, we had such a great experience that after going down to Australia and teaching for me, it was 1 year. And for Jen, I'll let her talk about her experience. She was there for 3. We both came back to the US and we're looking for something extra in addition to teaching. And that's why we're working for Leading Out now. So we've gone through the entire process. We know the hiccups, all the little knick-knack things that you need to know to get through, all the hoops you got to jump through. And we really pride ourselves on that. So, Jen, you can go to the next slide and take over.
All right. Before I kind of go into this stuff, I'll kind of share my little story as well that Steve kind of touched on. So I'm from Texas. I went to University of Texas at Austin, got my teaching degree there, and I started teaching in Austin. I taught for 2 years, and then just got that itch, wanted to go abroad, wanted to see the world and travel. Kind of like Steve said, I just scoured the internet for great resources and found Leading Out. I moved to Australia with Leading Out in 2018, and I went to Melbourne, and I absolutely loved it. I did not want to leave. So I did all the things I could to stay. I did some regional work that allowed me to stay for a second year. And then in my second year, it was a little bit of a combo of love and COVID. I found my partner, and a little bit of COVID mixed in. It kind of allowed me to stay for my 3rd year in Australia. So in my time there, I had a lot of experience working with a lot of different schools and applying to a lot of different schools, working in a lot of different environments. And Leading Out was helpful kind of throughout the time there. When it came time for me to want to stay a bit longer, they kind of supported me in that and knowing the different ways. Because as Randy was saying, there's a lot of different rules with each country of how you get your work rights, how you can hold on to them, and just different hurdles you have to go through. So it's really helpful to have these kind of companies and people to hold your hand, especially for someone like me who hadn't, done a huge abroad, trip and move like that before. I just really needed that extra kind of hand holding that Leading Out gave me. And then, so I just got back to the US. I say just got back, but it's almost been a year now, in September 2021. And as Steve said, I just loved the company so much. And I felt like, we both felt like there's such a huge market here in the States, such an opportunity in Australia. It's a beautiful place to live, obviously, and it's a fantastic place to teach. The wages are really great. The situation is really great. The opportunities are just, huge. So we're just really passionate about getting the word out to more people. So thinking about those opportunities, as I was kind of going into, like Steve said, we're really focusing on Australia at the moment. That has to do with borders and just has to do with the amount of need that is in Australia. They're have a really high need for teachers at the moment, which is great for you guys because you can, find that right fit for you, whether that's kind of sliding into a full-time contract position with a school, or maybe you kind of want to dip your toes in the water. So this is what Steve and I did when we first went. We started off as substitute teachers. And that was really great because, you didn't have to commit to one school your whole time there. You really could get a feel of the different neighborhoods, learn about the different cultures, find your right fit. And it was really flexible with timing as well. And with leading out, we have a specific contract that you can have where you work as a substitute, but you do have 5 days a week of guaranteed work. So it's a little bit of that middle ground where you've got a contract that's supporting you and you're going to have that steady income. But at the same time, you don't have to fully commit to one school full on the whole time that you've never seen or been to before. So that's where I started out doing that. And, those often led to longer term positions. I know Steve was very similar, where you go into a school subbing and you bop around, you find that school that you really like. And then more often than not, they'll offer you that kind of full-time contract position. Or, like I did. And I think Steve kind of did the same too. We kind of held on to our subbing as well. It's just such a great deal having that 5 days a week guarantee. And we've got the wages set up for you there as well. It's a really, really competitive wage of that $350 Australian dollars a day. So it's about 275 US dollars a day with the current need. So, coming from Texas, when I was pitched this idea of, you could be a substitute teacher in Australia, I was like, there's no way I can move across the world for a sub job. Like, I'm not going to make enough money. This is not going to be sustainable. So it was kind of knowing that niche. And again, how leading out kind of helped me understand, like, no, it's more than enough for you to survive, travel, do everything you want to do. And also just kind of keep that flexibility while also, obviously boosting your resume and having this actual teaching experience, as well as, having the time of your life traveling and making some good money. So that's kind of just the short bit of the opportunities we've got right now. We really can't push enough how high need there is in Australia right now. They are, every day giving us different boosts of like, this opportunity, we'll pay a little extra if you travel a little further, or, we're desperate need for a contract position here. And, so there's just a whole lot of need at the moment, kind of with post-COVID. Australia decided to implement this new teacher tutoring program. And so they hired like an influx of 10,000 new teachers, which kind of pulled from their teaching pool. So that's kind of the short reason why there is such a high need for teachers at the moment in Australia. And I'll just talk a bit about Australia and Melbourne, and I'll let Steve kind of talk about his experience and things he did there. So we were both in Melbourne. Melbourne is just at the bottom of Australia on the south end, and it's a fantastic city. It's got, an amazing lifestyle, all of the bars, restaurants, cafes, everything you could want. The beach, of course, is there as well. One of my favorite things about Melbourne is it's really central to a lot of different places. Like when I was in Melbourne, I made it to Tasmania and New Zealand and Bali and Northern Australia. And there's just so many, it's a hub for cheap flights where you're able to kind of travel around. So I spent the majority of my time in Melbourne. I kind of mentioned briefly, I did some regional work to be able to earn my second year working holiday visa. And in doing that, I kind of went to Northern Australia for a little while I was there, but I came back and returned back to Melbourne. A lot of it is because I wanted to stick to the subbing job that I had, because again, there's just such great flexibility in that. I know I kind of mentioned that 5 days a week, so it's 5 days a week guaranteed pay, but you also don't have to work 5 days a week. So say I want to take a long weekend, it's very easy to, to take off that Thursday, Friday, Monday, and then I could go travel and come back. So it was a great mix of that travel that I really wanted, but I was also, working, helping my career, boosting my resume. And Melbourne is just like a really special, voted most livable city for a very, very long time. So yeah, I'll let you, Steve, if you want to talk about some of the places you went while you were in Australia and in Melbourne.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Jen said, it was such a great mix to be able to go over on this substitute contract with the guarantee of full-time pay. When I went to Australia, I knew that I was going to be coming back to the US a year later for graduate school. So I went into the whole process knowing like, hey, I'm going for 1 year. I don't really need to look for a full-time role. And that's why this subcontract was really nice for me as well. Their school year is laid out differently than the US as well. So they start the school year in February and they go until the middle of December. So they've got 4 terms, and each term is 10 weeks. And in between each of those 10-week terms, they've got a 2-week holiday. So those 2-week holidays are great times to go and travel. At the end of December, in the middle of December, at the end of their school year, they have a 6-week break, and that's their summer. So their summer includes, all of our winter holidays essentially. So it was kind of weird to get sunburned in New Zealand on Christmas. But I went back and visited my host family over that break. I spent the entire month of January in a van traveling up the west coast of Australia. It was like 120 degrees a couple of the days, but we got to go to the outback. We slept outside and could see the entire Milky Way above us. There's dingoes running around. So we did some really cool trips. Went up to the Great Barrier Reef and went scuba diving. Went skydiving a couple times in New Zealand. We did every cool thing you could want, and that was on that subs salary. So it's way more than what you'd get paid in the US for a sub job. It was actually more than I made full-time teaching in the US for a while. So that's always a plus as well. Next slide, Jen. The work environment, I'll talk a bit about this. I'm not going to get too much into it because it's not that much different than the US. They're very progressive in a lot of ways. Their curriculum is constantly being revamped to be most up to date as possible. Very culturally inclusive. Most schools that I went to were just like true melting pots of different cultures. Every neighborhood's kind of its own little area. I know Jen can talk a lot more about this because she moved around a little bit more than I did, but everywhere you go is just like its own little cultural hub, which is really cool. It really is a true melting pot. I mean, just in my apartment complex alone, there was 9 apartments, 3 floors of 3 apartments, and above me was German, Welsh, and Irish. Next to me was Indian and Chinese, and below me was French. So just all these different young people looking to travel. In the classroom, they have a ton of technology. Most students have devices. So, we've kind of all been going through COVID here. We're used to using Zoom meetings and stuff, but they do have a huge focus on outdoor activities and sport and activity. So lots of hiking, surfing, kayaking, camping, things like that, which is, I'm a physical education teacher by trade. So a lot of that was really fun for me when I was down there. Jen, I think you can go to the next slide. We kind of talked about this already. Jen did a bit. Melbourne is, like she said, it's a huge hub for cheap flights. So you can go to Bali, New Zealand, Fiji, all over Australia pretty easily. Jen, if you want to talk about this slide, I'll let you do that.
Okay, sorry. I know we got to kind of wrap up so we can get to your questions and everything. I'll just quickly go through this stuff. This is just a long list of the things that we help you with leading out. As Randy said, there's a lot of different nitty-gritty things that come along to get your teaching cert, to get your banking, all that kind of stuff. So just this list of things is a lot of the things that we help you with. Again, it's just that kind of hand holding to help you get that job, know you've got that guaranteed contract. when you arrive in Australia, and that you've got everything to live and work when you're there. Our big thing that we just probably should mention is that we do hire teachers. So we are education focused. You do need to have your teaching certificate and having, your student teaching done, a certain number of supervised teaching days. That is a specific thing that the VIT, which is the teaching agency in Australia, will require for you. So just something to keep in mind if this is something you're interested in. You do have to have that kind of teaching certification as well. To make sure you can get it. And that's your teaching cert. And then to get your visa, you just need to be under 30 years old. And there's some costs that go into it as well that we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of that. But just so you're kind of flagging in your head, am I eligible for this? There's that age limit and having that teaching certificate as well. And we'll kind of go through, we'll definitely provide our contact information so you can talk to us about the process. There's an interview process where you would meet with one of us or one of the other recruitment agents to get you through with Leading Out to see if you are a good fit for us. Steve, any last things you want to chime in before we let them do questions?
Nothing really. I mean, check out our website, leadingout.net. It's got a ton of information on there. We will be sending some brochures to IU. The only big thing I would say is if you really are serious about this, the earlier you start the process, the better. A minimum of 3 months it usually takes to go through all of the processing time for visas and teacher registration, but it never hurts to start even a year or two beforehand, like just to get all of your ducks in a row. Jen's got a couple pictures here. Otherwise, I think we're all done and we'll leave it open to Sulia for questions.
I love these pictures. I really need some Australia vibe right now. We're staying in Wellington for too long. Oh, great. Now we have some minutes left, and I will give the time for all of our participants to ask questions. So we have Andy here. He can answer a question about career connections and teaching opportunities. And Randy, she will have on-campus resources. She'll ask her question. And Jen and Stephen, they will tell you more stories. So anyone want to start? Don't hesitate to ask. Hey. Well, yeah, I think Jen and Stephen, you mentioned about the working permission, right? The time it will take for our students to go abroad. So what about your experience with the Australia government about the immigration documents? Would that be a difficult thing for us?
I can answer this one. So the processing time of 3 months to get over there, a lot of it is just waiting for your background checks. Australia runs their own background check, which takes them 4 to 5 weeks usually. In the US, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks to get it back. Besides that, it's not that difficult. It's just a lot of very specific things. Forms filled out in very specific sentences. For example, the student teaching days. When they're reviewing your application, you need a letter from your university saying that you completed X number of supervised teaching days. If it's too vague, they won't accept it. So you need to have like the exact number of supervised teaching days that you completed, and it has to be more than 45. Those are just some of the things that people may not find or just maybe skim over, and that will, delay you a week or two, depending on how long they take to get back to you and how long it takes you to get that form filled out by somebody from your university. So a lot of it isn't difficult work. It's just knowing exactly how to fill it out. And that's where we come in. Because we've done this so many times, we've got templates for everything, just to kind of skip a lot of those headaches and hoops that you'd have to jump through if you were doing this on your own.
That's nice to know. So Andy and Randy, does IU have a similar service for our students? if they want to go abroad and have questions about these documents.
Other than the Passport Career Service can help with that. But when it comes to paperwork in another country, no, thank you.
Randy, you feel free to leave earlier. I know you have a meeting later.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming today.
It was my pleasure. Good luck. I hope all of you get an experience abroad. You can tell from Stephen and Jen, it's so rewarding, life-changing experiences. So please do take advantage of it if you can.
Thank you. Bye, Randy.
Bye.
Okay, do we have more questions here? It's
I actually had one.
Great.
So I'm an undergrad going into his senior year for elementary education. Would it be reasonable for me to start going with reading out like right now, or should I wait for a little while?
It wouldn't hurt to start now. When are you graduating?
23 in May, so coming up. It's a while away.
Yeah, you got about a year. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, we're really not going to get like the whole process started until maybe January, February. But it doesn't hurt. Like you could start to get some of these things filled out, keep them in a folder on your computer. That way, when it comes time to apply for this, you just drag and upload all of your documents. It just makes it easier. I mean, I have some teachers that, like, one just emailed me yesterday and she's like, hey, I'm getting back next week. I would like to go to Australia in September. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be really tough because we don't want to send you down there before you have your teaching license because you wouldn't be able to work, right? So if we can get your teaching registration done before you get there, that's the ideal process. So honestly, it wouldn't hurt if you wait a few months, even January, February, reach out to us. But even if you reach out now, we can keep your name and I'll reach out and remind you and be like, hey, Kason, I know that you were interested. Like, now is a good time to get started. Let me know how I can help. And, it doesn't hurt.
I have a teacher at the moment who's exactly in your shoes that I've interviewed. She's gone through the process. We've accepted her. And yeah, now we're kind of just in that waiting game. Like I've given her the checklist and she's, kind of ticking through it, but obviously has, a good chunk of time. But, I would say there's no harm in, starting the process because, there's like the interview and getting through all of the things as well. And like Steve said, there's a lengthy list of things you have to collect. So, and if it's just the kind of thing, in your mind, like I want to know where I'm going next year. I want to know that this has happened and done. Because kind of like Randy said, that's not always a luxury you have when you're trying to teach abroad. So yeah, there's no harm. I would say if you were any earlier in your career that to definitely wait. But since you're approaching your senior year, there's no harm in reaching out.
Thank you very much.
For your question, Kason. I think it's time to end this webinar now. I'm very glad that we have so many participants today and our amazing speakers. Thank you for your presentation and hope we could collaborate again in future. Okay, I will share with everyone the links and websites we share in this webinar today. So stay tuned for our recordings and the materials. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sulia. Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
Dr. Paula, this is actually my student.
Hi, stop recording maybe.
Oh, yeah.